Astronomers discover a previously unnoticed asteroid moving through deep space. Initial observations suggest it is large enough to become dangerous if its trajectory brings it close to Earth. As more observations are collected, scientists calculate the asteroid's orbit with greater accuracy. A potential collision zone begins to appear, and parts of the Philippines fall within the predicted path. Scientists would study the asteroid's dimensions, speed, density, and composition. These factors would determine how much energy it could release and whether it would survive atmospheric entry. Philippine authorities would coordinate with astronomers, disaster response agencies, and international organizations. Maps of potentially affected regions would become essential for deciding where emergency preparations should begin. News of the asteroid would spread across the country. Manila, Cebu, Davao, and communities throughout the many Philippine islands would be watching for updates as scientists refine the prediction. The Philippines' geography would create a major challenge. Thousands of islands mean that moving people, supplies, and emergency equipment could require a combination of roads, ships, aircraft, and airports. If the asteroid were detected years in advance, authorities might have time to prepare large-scale evacuation plans. If the warning came much later, moving millions of people could become almost impossible. The object finally reaches Earth's atmosphere. Friction and compression heat the surrounding air, creating an enormous glowing trail that could be visible from a vast distance for observers far from the impact point. The asteroid could appear as an incredibly bright object crossing the sky. Seconds later, the collision would unleash the destructive energy that scientists had feared. At the collision site, extreme heat and pressure would rapidly destroy the surrounding environment. Rock and soil could be pulverized and thrown outward at tremendous speeds. If the asteroid were large enough and struck land, it could create a massive crater. The surrounding terrain could be permanently transformed, with enormous quantities of material thrown into the atmosphere. A powerful shockwave would spread from the impact zone. Buildings, vehicles, roads, bridges, and other structures could be damaged progressively farther from the point of impact. If the impact occurred near Metro Manila, the consequences could be especially severe. The region's enormous population and concentration of infrastructure would make rescue and evacuation extraordinarily difficult. Debris, damaged bridges, collapsed structures, and abandoned vehicles could make roads difficult to use. Emergency responders would need to clear routes while simultaneously transporting injured people and essential supplies. Electricity infrastructure could be damaged by the blast, fires, or ground disturbances. Extended power failures would affect hospitals, communications, water systems, transportation, and businesses. In asteroid striking the surrounding ocean would create a different type of catastrophe. A sufficiently large impact could displace huge quantities of seawater and generate powerful waves. Low-lying coastal communities could be particularly vulnerable to waves and flooding. Ports, fishing areas, resorts, airports, and coastal roads could suffer severe disruption depending on the impact location. If ports and airports were damaged, some islands could become temporarily isolated. Delivering food, medicine, fuel, and rescue equipment would become one of the biggest challenges. The impact's extreme heat could trigger fires across affected areas. Urban buildings, vehicles, industrial facilities, and damaged electrical systems could all contribute to secondary fires. Hospitals would face huge numbers of injured people while potentially dealing with damaged infrastructure and shortages. Medical facilities outside the main impact region would become vital emergency centers. Authorities would need to communicate evacuation orders and safety information quickly, but damaged communication towers power failures, and overloaded networks could make it difficult for people to receive reliable information. The Philippines depends on complex transportation networks to move food between islands. Damage to roads, ports, ships, warehouses, and markets could create shortages even in areas that escaped direct destruction. Farmland could be damaged by the immediate impact and its aftermath. If a very large asteroid injected significant dust into the atmosphere, reduced sunlight could create additional problems for crops. The Philippines, beaches, islands, resorts, and diving destinations attract visitors from around the world. A catastrophic event could severely damage tourism infrastructure and create massive economic losses. A major collision could contaminate local landscapes with debris and dust. Rivers, forests, coastal ecosystems, and marine environments could all be affected depending on where the asteroid struck. The consequences could extend beyond the Philippines through disrupted shipping, trade, migration, and atmospheric effects. Neighboring countries could face economic and humanitarian challenges. As the disaster unfolded, the Philippines is connected to international manufacturing, shipping, electronics, agriculture, and trade networks. A catastrophic disaster could therefore create disruptions far beyond Southeast Asia. Other countries and international organizations could provide aircraft, ships, medical teams, emergency supplies, food, and financial assistance. Coordinating this aid across thousands of islands would be a huge logistical operation. Recovery would require rebuilding homes, roads, bridges, airports, ports, hospitals, power systems, and communication networks. The most severely affected regions could take many years to recover. The best defense would be stopping the asteroid before it reaches Earth early. Detection could give scientists years to study the object and potentially alter its trajectory using planetary defense technology. In this scenario, the most important battle would happen millions of kilometers away in space.